or alternative attempts to
from China.
What are we
They got
in?
transferred to Tinian and started bombing Japan. Hi, Mike. They were in the same.
And he survived.
Where are we in? We are in.
Hello, Mike.
I
Oh.
tried to get something for you, but he wouldn't give it to me.
Father was something like man,
I did it too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Years ago.
All right. I have 9 o'clock,
Stunning.
9 a.m. I'd like to call to order the Kane County Finance and Budget Committee on Wednesday, September 25th, 9 a.m. Do we have roll call, please?
Juby,
To be here.
Morning.
Bliss, Sanchez, Surges, Pepe,
Happy here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Berman,
Firm's here.
in-person quorum.
I have a remote attendance request from Mr. Sanchez. He's busy with childcare today. Is that all right with the members?
Yes.
Very good. Moving on. We have approval of minutes of the August 12th, 2024.
Tepe asks for unanimous consent.
Do I have a second? Oh, you asked for consent? Everybody agree? Good enough. We're going to defer the August 19th and the August 28th until our next meeting. Public comments. First is Janine Mayer.
Hello, I'm Janine Mayer, citizen of Kane County for about 40 years, financial advisor for the last 40 years. And I had a letter that someone will read in a few minutes. But the main gist of all of this is that in 2020, Madam Chair got elected. She was the first Democratic chair, I understand, of the Kane County Board ever in history. At that point, in 2020, 65 million was the Kane County budget for the general fund. And from what I understand, the general fund is what the Kane County Board has discretion over. So next year, 2021, her first year in office, it's 77 million, increase of 18%. 2022, 83 million, increase of 7%. 2023, 108 million, increase of 30%. And 2024, 122 million, an increase of 13%. This comes to an 87% increase in the Kane County General Fund budget during the time that Madam Chair, first Democrat ever in Kane County, has run the board. The typical board increase around the country is about 2 to 6% a year. This is very excessive, especially when you look at two issues. When you look at the contractual and the employee benefits, both of them have increased a astronomical amount. And this has nothing to do with personalities, politics, emotions, or anything else. This is just facts. We're here because this is hurting the citizens of Kane County. This is our future. We have to have someone that is running this board and board members that are holding the head of the board accountable for using our citizens' funds in a manner that is fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Julianus Tilly.
All right. Hello. Can you hear me all right? Okay. Thank you. All right. I'm here today to read a letter written by a fellow concerned citizen, Janine Mayer, addressed to the Madam Board Chair, Ms. Perogue. Janine is a certified financial planner, MBA and a wealth advisor who has been counseling individuals and businesses for more than 40 years. on prudent financial management. I am deeply concerned about the recent proposal to implement the 0.75% sales tax at addressing a budget shortfall. Upon hearing this, I took it upon myself to investigate the trends in Kane County's revenue and expenses over the past few years. What I found should alarm every taxpayer in the county, so everyone in this room. In 2020, the Kane County budget was 65 million. By 2024, it had exploded to 122 million. According to your own accounting department's report of July 24th, 2024. This is an 80% increase in just 4 years. This unchecked growth is particularly egregious in the area of personal costs. In 2020, 41 million was spent on salaries and wages, and now that figure has skyrocketed to 78.2 million. Again, that was, I'm sorry. Contractual personnel costs have also ballooned, increasing from 10 million to 17.5 million, a 75% rise over the same period. What makes these increases even more concerning is the fact that Kane County's population has actually decreased. In 2012, the population was 520,000. By 2023, it had fallen to 515,000. There has been no population growth to justify these massive increases in spending, raising serious questions about where the taxpayer dollars are going and why. Let me be clear, this isn't a political issue. However, it is important to acknowledge that Kane County Board is made up of 16 Democrats and 8 Republicans. It appears that the board members are most responsible for driving big spending. They are named as follows: Vern Tape, Mavis Bates, Bill Taver, and Cheryl Strathman. Thank you.
Next speaker is Michelle Bettig.
Hi, Michelle Bettag, St. Charles. First of all, I guess my concern every single month that I've been coming here for 2 years is announcing the spending, announcing that Kane County citizens are struggling, seeing the spending going up and up when this committee is meeting and having the first approval of some of these expenses. It's alarming. And then it goes to the county board and they have no idea what's going on and everyone's just approving everything. Example number 1, the health department building. Just because the health department has the money to buy a building doesn't mean that the county has money to do the support staff, do the services, do the landscaping, the furniture, and everything else. Number 2, the new government center that Karine Parag is trying to get approved in order to pay her donors back. We're spending $750,000 on a study to do a new government building. However, we are going to be broke, according to her, by 2027. As we observed during the compensation for the elected officials, the whole process of increasing those wages was completely, I don't want to cuss here, but it was a theatrical mess, to say the least. It literally was embarrassing. I mean, when you're looking at, oh, we don't have money for this, we don't have money for that, and then you're sitting there spending money like drunken sailors, it's horrible. And whether it's a Democrat or Republican, I'm not happy with most of everybody on the board. I mean, it's alarming at how no one is digging into the numbers. Everyone's voting yes. There's no, thank you for looking at me, Anita. I feel like I'm talking to myself. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Anyway, small businesses filings for Chapter 11, 61% up this year. That's 4,553 this year. People are struggling. Individual bankruptcies up 15%, what includes a lot of the millennials who are the future of Kane County. People won't be able to afford to live here. There's a few members on this board with financial backgrounds. I don't understand why they're not taking the initiative to sit down with their pencil and paper The increases in staff, the increases in contractual labor is astronomical at a time when the United States of America is struggling hard. And it seems to me every single time I come here, there's no consideration for that. It seems like we're living in la la land here at the Kane County Board meeting. And when we go outside and talk to constituents, people are actually pissed. And when they hear these numbers that are coming up with the spending, their hair is on fire. So take that into consideration. Don't know if that matters to you, but please do think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. There's Brad Rashke.
I'm here today not to echo tired political divides of Democrats versus Republicans, but to raise a deeper issue, one that transcends partisanship. This is not about left or right. This is about citizens versus a government that have become increasingly detached from the people it's meant to serve. And I say this to you clearly, that government cannot and will not stand unchallenged. Our nation's history is filled with examples of what happens when leaders abuse their authority and trample on the people they govern. The colonists didn't rise up because of petty political disagreements. They rose up because their leaders had grown fat on the people's labor while providing little in return. When the royal governors padded their own salaries, exploiting the public trust, the colonists used the power of the purse to say enough. They refused to pay taxes to a system that had become corrupt and self-serving. They protested, they resisted, and they ultimately revolted. We find ourselves in a similar position today. The people of Kane County are being asked to shoulder an ever-growing burden, while the very officials elected to represent them grow more distant and unaccountable. This isn't a matter of balancing budgets. This is a matter of principle. A government that continues to expand its power and its spending at the expense of the people is a government that will inevitably face resistance. Economist Robert Higgs warned us of this very process, the ratchet effect, where government seizes on crises to justify greater spending and control. And once it grabs hold, it never lets go. What begins as a temporary measure becomes permanent as the government tightens its grip on both power and purse. What you are doing now by proposing yet another tax increase is simply continuing the cycle of Leviathan, a government growing larger, more intrusive, and more distant from the will of the people. But history has shown us something else. When a government ceases to serve the people will push back. We see it in the revolts of the past and in the protests of today. Citizens will not stand idle while they are treated as nothing more than an endless source of revenue. We are not here to fund the luxuries of those in power. And if this board continues to go down this path, I assure you, the people will respond. They always do. This is not a threat. It's a fact of history. The answer to this situation is not more taxes and more spending. The answer is for this board to remember who you serve. The citizens of Kane County demand accountability, fiscal responsibility, and an end to the ceaseless cycle of taxation and waste. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Anthony Cotello. Cotella? I'm sorry.
Catella. Anthony Catella here. You'll forgive me. I have a difficulty. I got my contacts in. It helps me see far, but I got to get a better prescription to see close. Esteemed members of this wonderful board of ladies and gentlemen, esteemed board members, fellow citizens, I stand before you today deeply concerned about the current state of Kane County's budget. It's no secret that in 2020 to 2024, the county's budget has ballooned at an alarming rate. In 2020, the budget stood at $65 million. Now, just 4 years later, it has skyrocketed to a staggering $122 million, a nearly 90% increase. Now, let us be clear. This is happening at a time when the population has actually decreased. The Kane County population went from 520,000 in 2012 to 515,000 in 2023. We are spending more for fewer people. A large portion of this budget increase is being driven by personal costs. In 2020, $41 million was allocated for salaries and wages. Today, that figure has swelled to $78.2 million. Additionally, contractual personnel costs have risen from $10 million to $175 million, further adding to the strain on taxpayers. And it's high time for leadership to take a hard look at this runaway spending. And just to end here real quickly, I just was at breakfast this morning over at the Geneva Diner, and I was talking with a man who lives outside the city limits, and he was complaining about how high he has to pay his taxes and how little amount he's actually getting for those taxes that he pays. So these are matters of concern to a good many citizens, and we have been coming before you for a good many years now, asking for redress of grievances. And we hope that as reasonable citizens, fellow citizens, one to another, we can work these problems out in an amicable way and have ourselves a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That ends our speakers. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Frank Esposito.
Thank you and good morning. I'm going to be short and sweet because some of the other people have said more eloquently than I can the same points. On page 117 of the attachments to this agenda, there is an analysis that people have spoken about as showing 2020 to 2024, how the expenses have risen. And I can understand that as an item goes through, you're looking at one particular thing and it goes through. But hopefully some, if not all of you, are looking at the big picture as to what this totally accumulates to. Now, of course, it starts back when the budgeting is done. And back then we should say, okay, we want to increase salaries. That's fine, but let's be realistic. Okay, what can we afford to do? I know you're trying to take care of the citizens and giving them the services that they need, but at the same time, we have to tighten our belt. So the bottom line is I'm against the sales tax increase. My daughters live in Wheaton, and when this tax increase goes in, I'll be able to buy things in Wheaton, the same item at less cost than I can now in Kane County. That doesn't make sense to me. I've always imagined that DuPage County was always more expensive than Kane. Maybe we're not going to be going into the future. So I really think this sales tax is a bad idea. And if it's going to be in the ballot, which I think is strange that it's pushed off to the off season, okay, when there are fewer people that will come out to vote. But I can guarantee you there will be a lot of people that will be voting against it. Also, one other item. On page 431, we have to pay $210,243.73 to Comcast at the end of the fourth quarter of 2024. This document doesn't make any sense to me. It looks like it's a court order that for some reason, Kane County has to pay Comcast. And Comcast is paying Campton Hills $283,000, or they did back then. Does anybody look at this? What were we doing wrong that we owe this kind of money to Comcast? They should be paying us because we allow their service in our community. So somebody has to be watching this stuff. And all these committee meetings, I'm sorry, you don't accomplish anything.
Thank you, sir. Include our speakers. Our next item is the Treasurer's Report. Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Blair, if you would put up slide 7. We submitted our written report 9 days ago. Just going to hit a couple of highlights this morning. First, page 7 and 8 really should be taken together. The point is that performance is exceeding expectations, both on 7. This is expectations of projections from last year. This chart shows that the expectation was 1.8 million in interest income last year. We produced just under 17 million. With the accrual adjustment, it was over 18 million. And this year, the blue, yes, thank you, Blair. The blue bars are this year by month interest income. And so you can see that we're just slightly ahead of last year. And then the yellow portion naturally is what we collect on behalf of other taxing districts. And that greatly exceeds about 10 to 1 what was collected in previous years. Now, many of you know that interest rates are starting to track down. Last week on Wednesday, there's a 0.5% decrease. I'd like to, Blair, if you pull up page 9. Okay, let's see. If you go down, let's see. Yes, good. If you go down, if you slide it all the way up, Blair, that'd be great. Oh, I'm sorry, the other direction. So, okay. Oh, so that note is showing? Okay. Basically, 63% of our portfolio has a 2 to 3 year duration. And the interest rate on that is between 4 and 5%. So that's the most important thing. Lots of numbers on here, but I know that it's a serious responsibility that you have in trying to forecast or project where are we going to be in a year, where we're going to be in 2 years. At the top, let's see, actually, if you go to the yellow, okay, so you see the yellow portion, the line that is just above the total, where there are the 2 check marks. Those are 2 very important numbers. It demonstrates that the mortgage-backed security, one of the items, one of the types of investments that we've been making, 42% of it is mortgage-backed security, and that interest rate is at 5.24%, so 5.25%. And the duration is the last number, check mark, that's for about 3.25 years, so 3.23 years, so 3.25 years. If you go to the blue section, the yellow is Vector's investment managers. The blue is PFMAM. If you look at the similar number in the blue section, the mortgage-backed security is about 35% of what we have invested. The average interest rate is 4.96 or 5%, and the duration is about 3 years. So in total, generates that we're about 4.5% for about 2.1 years. So anyway, gives you an idea about where we are. We did stretch the maturities of our investments over a longer period, knowing that the interest rates were coming down. So we have a little slack over the next 2-3 years. And then finally, if you'd pull up page 18. Okay, bottom line is I think everybody is comfortable in this room knowing that these results aren't the product of, I'm sorry, I'm no investment expert, but what the committee allowed me to do is go out, and the board allowed me to do is go out and get experts. I, again, appreciate Mr. Berman's, Chairman Berman, Vice Chairman Leonard's help on that, the juries that selected. Neil Powers, who's the owner, founder of Vectors Research, investment firm that was recommended and then selected. Once again, it's either the second or the third year that Neil has been recognized as one of the top 10 fixed income managers in the country. So for about 1/10 of 1 penny, so you take a penny, chop it in 10 pieces, for 1/10 of a penny, we get the best in the country to advise our citizens. So that's what I have for today.
Any questions of the treasurer? Excuse me, Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lawson, you had stated that 63% of the investable funds are secured at between 4 to 5% for the next 2 to 3 years. I think it was 2.24 years or 3.24 years.
Yes.
So in predicting interest in the future, I know we've been told that we can't predict the interest in the future, but if 63% of that is at roughly 4.5%, I seem to feel that it would be reasonably feasible to project maybe a 3.5% rate increase for the next 3 years, considering the other 37% is not secured for that period of time. Would that be reasonable?
I think it's reasonable.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I have a comment. You know, your treasury report is great, detailed, and it shows the success of our investments. But it's brought to my attention by multiple county board members that your supplemental contextual economic data and your comments and opinions are sometimes biased, leaning to your political partisan. I know we don't have to read that supplemental data, but your report is not your private platform. And it's a partisan platform. I don't know how it's appreciated by the board. Thank you.
Okay, that's
I have not.
the reason why that's in there is because these are the pieces of information that I typically use to try to project forward and try to judge what are the best investments and what is going to happen to our sales tax revenue, our income tax revenue, and our property tax revenue. So I appreciate what you're saying. I think that it's necessary for me to do a good job. And like you pointed out, people don't have to read it, but I do think it's important for me to include it for the people who are interested in trying to project into the future. And the result comes from some of these building blocks. But I appreciate your compliment to the work that we're doing in the Treasurer's office on the investment side.
I think the data is important. Your comments sometimes tend to be.
Well, thank you very much.
Partisan. All right, moving on.
Jesus.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You know what, you know that I struggle on this notion of internal control. I've voiced that to this board so many times. And I don't want to be tiptoeing on something where we're trying to censor somebody. Whether it's the auditor's office, whether it's the sheriff's office, whether, you know, in this case, Mr. Lawson, you know what, I tend to appreciate those notes. And I do understand that sometimes there's a bias, whether it's coming from this side or that side or up or down or whatever. But we can't all be experts in everything. And I do appreciate, Chris specifically, if you have something to say, I would like to hear that. And I don't want to be auditing or censoring somebody if there's something ancillary that we should be hearing or something that maybe I'm just not quick enough to pick up. And so I don't want this to seem like this is some partisan attack of this team versus that team. If you don't like what's in there, don't read it, I guess. I mean, I don't know. This seems a little petty to me, but
That's
just for what it's worth, sir.
We don't need to read it.
Yeah, I mean,
Very good, thank you. Moving on, auditor's report, Ms. Wegman.
Good morning. My report is on file. And the last two things that are on the report, essentially, the the financial report and the mid-year procurement card report were both emailed to all the board members on Monday. So if there's any questions, I can address those.
Very good, thank you. Item B is a resolution approving the August 2024 claims paid of $12,534,432.29. Do we have a motion to?
Tepe moves.
Epi,
Sorry, Juby seconds.
Julie, discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Pepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Moving on, item 8, our finance director's report, Ms. Hopkinson.
Hello. The finance packet is in your file. I'll just go through a few items. If we can go to page 3 of this report. Yes. So this report represents a subset of the general fund. So it's the general account of the general fund. Where we are now in 2024 is we are using, as of the when I put this report together last week, we're using about a little over $6 million in fund balance. That is primarily because our property tax, our second installment property tax revenue came in. That will carry us for the next 2.5 months through the end of this fiscal year. We're running pretty close to budget. So if we continue running close to budget, we will end the year probably using somewhere between $10 and $14 million of fund balance to balance this account. And I wanted to point out on some of these numbers. So if you look at 2020, I don't know if it's possible to make that bigger on the screen. In 2020, 2021, and 2022, as we all know, those were the primary COVID years. In those 3 years, the county paid regular salaries, what we would normally have paid out of our general fund, we paid out of different funds. We paid out of our CARES Act and our ARPA funds. So in 2020, we paid $18.4 million in salaries that normally if we didn't have the CARES and ARPA funds, we would have paid out of this fund. So if you add that back, our expenses in 2020 would have been $83.8 million. In 2021, our expenses would have been 85.5. And in 2022, our expenses would have been 95 million. And our total budget or our total expenses for 2020 were actually, as you know, the county has over 100 funds. This general fund, general account is just one subset of one fund. But our total spending for 2020 was $270 million. So I'll just make that point. And then if we can go to the page that says personal property replacement tax.
Pause 1 minute.
Yes.
Sturgis?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkinson, just, I feel as though that last segment was answering some of the rhetoric that you've
Well,
presented with, but let me just ask the question. Is there anything that we did as a county with those COVID funds that any of our municipal counterparts that received the same funds didn't do? I think we all followed the same exact playbook on the directions we were given on how certain salaries and positions could be funded by this. And so if you looked at a 20-year snapshot, you're going to see a bubble here across every municipality that didn't exist or wouldn't have existed, but not for this situation. Is that accurate?
We used the dollars in compliance with the requirements. So everything that we did met the eligibility requirements. I can't say how every other municipality and county and state government spent their dollars. Everybody kind of spent their dollars. There's all different types of ways you can spend the money. I actually don't know.
My research indicates that was not indifferent, so.
I actually don't know for sure if other governments used it for salaries. I'm sure they did. But I have not done the research on that.
Mr. Sturgis, excuse me, would you repeat your last sentence? I couldn't understand it. You said your research has showed.
My research shows that the way we handled salaries was not indifferent.
Not different.
Not indifferent.
It was the same or different?
It was the same as the way most of the other municipalities handled it.
To understand. Thanks.
Sorry.
All right, thank you. Continue on.
Yeah, what makes it difficult, again, because the county has over 100 funds, I mean, it's essentially 100 buckets. And so instead of paying salaries out of the one bucket that we normally paid them for several years in a row, we paid them out of a different bucket. And so for comparative purposes, forever, those 3 years are essentially, they underrepresent what our salaries were, that we would have normally paid out of our, and other expenses, but primarily salaries, what we normally would have paid out of the general fund, because we used another bucket, because we had the ARPA money available and the CARES Act money available at that time. Actually the next page. So the Illinois Department of Revenue gave an update on their personal property replacement tax forecast. On August 26th, their estimate for what King County would be receiving was decreased again. So now they're saying for the period of July 1st, 2024 to July 1st, 2025, we'll get 2.3. These are just estimates, of course, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. Also, quickly, we completed our single audit, which is the audit of our federal funds for the period ending November 30th, 2023. Baker Tilly, our external audit firm, completed that audit, and we had no findings, which is a very good report. I'll also highlight that we had a kickoff meeting in our finance and IT departments last week to start putting in our forecasting software that we purchased. This is obviously a several month project. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're looking forward to that. Hopefully we can do better forecasting. And then lastly, just on the 2025 budget, the budget is on display. It's been posted to our county website. It's also, a copy has been placed on file in the county clerk's office. And that will come up again at the next county board meeting. I know that there is at least one department that has asked to make some changes to reduce their budget that I can bring up at that county board meeting. It's a department in this in a special revenue fund. And then the property tax levies we plan to take at the next finance committee meeting, which is in October. I know that Mill Creek, I don't know if Roger is here, Mill Creek, as you know, their association is in a way separate. And we just received word from them this week on their proposed property tax levy. So we may need to do a referendum on that. Again, like last year for Mill Creek, a special service area.
Very good.
Any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Hopkinson, you know, I've seen different numbers. I don't know which one is accurate or which one is not accurate. But since 2020 to today, how many additional employees has the county hired?
I don't have that number on the top, off the top of my head.
You know, in looking at numbers, and I could be off, so I'm just going to give you my guesstimates on it. But it looks to me like it was well over 100 employees and about a 9% increase in population.
Any idea?
Okay.
how many? Oops. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, we can get it. That's
be
easy
great.
enough to get, but I
Definitely.
don't have that off the top of my head.
Can we, Bill, would you mind if we filtered out those seasonal employees from
Yeah, these are just.
election stuff?
Right.
If we
Yeah.
can filter those out, I'm sure we can get that through human services.
Can, Caius,
Mr.
by
Caius.
department as well,
Ooh,
by department as well, judicial versus blah, blah, blah.
Oh, we're all part of the county.
Actually, if you pull, I don't have our budget handy, it's on our website, but in our annual budget book. So like if you go to our county website and pull up our 2024 budget book, I'm not saying that we should do that right now, but, and I can look that up and maybe get back to you shortly. We put a schedule together of number of employees by office and department, so I can look at that real quick here while we're in other aspects of this meeting.
Yeah, we don't have to dive into it right now, but if you could send that to not only everybody on the finance committee, but all the county board members, the actual number increase in employees for the county. If you want to break it down by department, that's fine too, but I want the total number for the county from 2020 to today.
Sure.
Increase.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In that same vein and in that area, one of the key things that we need to be concerned about are the mandates that the county is required to do. And part of the challenge is those things that we keep referring to as unfunded mandates. The biggest one, I think that it's affected the county in the past several years is that relating to the Safety Act. And from the judicial meeting just a few weeks ago, they were presenting some numbers and information associated with the additional cost of the Safety Act. I think it's pretty darn close to $5 million a year in additional costs just for the Safety Act. Again, an unfunded mandate from the state. So not only did the state's attorney have to ratchet up, we needed an additional courtroom. We had to ratchet up the public defender's office and their support staff. They're working every day of the year. So those kinds of mandates directly affect us. And we need to find a way to pay for them and they need to be taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pepe. Madam Chair.
The other comment, just to reflect on that, and I agree with Mr. Tepe, said the data shows this. The state's attorney's budget did blossom during this period of time in direct relationship to that. But also, instead of going through internal equity, she also reached out to external equity so that her staff would be compensated equitably to that of other counties within our area. So that did increase her costs greatly, but the services provided by the state's attorney, to me, I think are very worthwhile. So if we're going to argue about reducing that cost, we're also going to ask her to reduce the services that are provided. So I mean, we can talk about budget efficiency, but with budget efficiency becomes a reduction in services, some of which are indeed unfunded mandates that has been brought forward that we have to comply with.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question was not to say what was good or bad about it. I just wanted the numbers. So, you talk about editorializing. Well,
We sometimes wonder why you want the numbers, but
Not attacking you.
And nor, sir, was I. Just an explanation.
any other questions of Kathleen? Thank you very much. Next is our new business, and number A is an ordinance authorizing fiscal year 2025 non-union cost of living wage increase of 2.5% December 1st, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve, please?
Tepe will move.
Pepe,
Lewis, a second.
Lewis. Discussion. Ms. Juby.
So I'm a little concerned that we have a cost of living increase that doesn't actually represent the cost of living that the Social Security is forecasting. They're forecasting a 3.2 for 2025, and we're offering a 2.5, which to me is not a cost of living increase. So I think we either need to call it something else, or we need to actually have it be a cost of living increase to reflect the 3.2.
Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe we want to put in the word partial cost of living increase in the resolution.
Well, that's what it is. Ms. Bates?
Do we have a number for Kane County's cost of living increase?
I do not have that.
I do not have that.
I do not have that number either.
Yeah.
The state is 3.2. Okay.
So it'd be nice if we put partial in. Other than that, roll call, please.
What,
Wait a
is
minute.
someone making a motion to?
Did you make a motion?
I did not make a motion to change it.
That's what I thought.
I'll make a motion to change it to partial.
I'll
cost
second
of
that.
living increase.
All right. Motion.
Surge a second.
No, we're just changing the verbiage in there. Oh, cool. We could change the title too.
Mr. Berman, I have another word that could be used instead of partial. How just about annual increase?
Instead of cost of living, just annual.
Annual increase,
So get rid of the cost of living wage increase and just put
annual increase.
I,
1 year.
yeah, Madam Chair, I would be more comfortable leaving that language.
That's
to
fine.
Tie those two.
That's
in.
fine.
Mr. Chair, can we maybe have the conversation about actually offering the right amount for a cost of living increase? I mean, if our purpose is to make them more whole and not have them actually working for less because of inflation, then we need to have the conversation that it's going to cost us more. So I don't want to vote no, because I don't want to not let people have a little extra money, but I am fundamentally against a partial payment for a cost of living. If we're trying to make them whole, we need to make them whole.
Good.
So where are we on the floor right now? Are we looking to change the resolution to 3.2%?
I think we're just having a conversation, and I don't want to make a motion to change it without getting input from, the team. But if that's what it takes, then I'll make a motion to change it to a 3.2% cost of living increase, and we'll see if it dies.
And I'll second it.
Under discussion.
Ms. Surges?
Ask how waters get muddied. And this is one of those examples, and I just conferred with Ms. Labrillo. This was one that I have asked several times to be pushed back to committee. And we have 2 items coming forward right now. But my pushback was to segregate the merit portion of this from the other portion, the cost of living wage increase amount. And I think we've successfully presented that for us today. We did not, when we brought it back to committee, we did not look at the 2.5 versus the cost of living amount. And I want to be very clear on that. That did not come, that was not part of, we didn't debate that in any way, shape, or form. But I am very much in, the problem is that cost of living, it's just a computation that comes out that changes. So I mean, I don't know, Mr. Frank, if there is some way, or Mr. Shepro, if there is some way to make that a little bit more flexible, or if we say 2.5 and later we want to come back and say, hey, this is what the COLA actually came back, we should adjust that by point whatever. Do we have that ability, or is this lock us in stone and this is the end of it? Or how does that work? I'll take finance, I'll take legal, I'll take whoever wants to chime in on that. But that's not what we discussed. We were trying to separate that merit program.
I mean, the board can amend the budget at any point.
We all of us have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Ms. Juby, I don't know if that would satisfy you or you would like that changed.
Well,
on the
no,
floor
because
now?
it's still saying that we're offering 2.5 when we know that this year's is higher than 2.5 and next year's is projected to be the same. So no, that doesn't,
I
that
would be
doesn't
okay.
change it.
Surges would be okay supporting the amendment.
The amendment to increase it to 3.2.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Oh, there we go. What is the cost? Do we have an idea of that cost, reflective cost?
100,000.
Kathy, on the fly, there you go.
Well, the 2.5% is about across all funds across the county is a little over $4 million.
About 5
So this is just for the non-union portion
Not
of it?
just non-union.
Non-union.
So it'd be another
5
third.
Yeah.
A third of that.
5.3,
So it'd be half again, 1.2.
5.2, 5.3.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Leonard.
You know, one concern I have at this point is we have a budget on display right now. And we will have to amend that budget if we do this. So that could create, you know, a little bit of a concern because we have to have it on display for so many days and everything else. My thought is, I think we as a committee here should agree to amend it once the budget has been voted on and approved, that we should amend it for the 25 year to coincide with the actual cost of living increase of, which is 3.2% versus 2.5. Now, I know what Ms. Juby's going to say. We won't do it after the fact, but if we do it now, we can do it. Kathy, do you see any problems with amending our budget that's on display?
Yeah.
It'll take probably a good week for my staff to get all of that. Because we've got to change all the funds. We've got to change the IMRF calculations, the FICA everything.
But it's actually just an accounting.
Yes, it's an accounting issue. It would probably just to, you know, and double checking all the numbers, it's probably at least a week's worth of work to put in these additional changes. But
Shepro,
we
the
can do
board
it.
is free to amend the budget
Yeah.
after
It's been approved.
after it's been on public display, you're
Mm-hmm.
free to amend it to anything you want.
That's correct.
Good.
Absolutely.
Then I'm for it.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Ms. Bates, hold it.
Yeah.
Right.
Once the budget has been placed on public display for the requisite period of time, the county board may then amend that budget before final passage at any point consistent with the statutes.
After the 15 days is over, we can do an amendment.
So Frank Aseo, so Mr. Shepro is correct. But remember, this is only finance. So you haven't approved this as the county board. So you haven't actually made a change. So as long as the 15 days passes before the county board makes any changes, and technically you don't even, this doesn't change the budget yet. You'll have to formally change the budget after the 15 days. So even if you did it today, this would not affect the timing at all.
Good.
Mr. Chair.
Oh.
So, I think my problem is a philosophical problem. Just because we can change it, it seems very disingenuous that we know it needs to be changed. Yet we're going to put it on display and we're going to approve it and then we're going to change it. Changes to me are things that you didn't plan for, things that you didn't foresee. We are having a robust conversation about something that we know is going to get changed. And therefore I feel that is incredibly disingenuous and I cannot support that. I would have to change it here and send it forward. Otherwise, I'm going to have to vote no.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Leonard.
Agreement with Ms. Juby on that. We can do it here. It's not going to actually be voted on until the October county board meeting.
Right.
So I have no problem with that. Let's change it to 3.2% here, move it forward, and then have it approved at the October county board meeting, as long as everyone says there's no problem with timing on this.
Very good. Mr. Tepe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My concern is that for months now, we've had this 2.5% number. We gave it to Kathy. We gave it to all of the departments. And now we're talking about amending it. So I think it's just the wrong time to do that, particularly with the budget crisis that we have. Increasing anything is a challenge. So I would stick with the 2.5%. I'll be voting no against the amendment.
Ms. Lewis?
Yeah, so, can I ask Ms. Juby a question? Can I ask her a question? Where did you get the 3.2 from? Because I'm looking at an article that says that for Social Security, it's on Yahoo Finance this morning.
I got it from the Social Security website.
Okay, because here Yahoo Finance says that the Social Security is not going to make the official COLA announcement until October 10th.
No, they're not. They suggested though.
Right, but here it says the Senior Citizens League estimated the benefit will increase 2.5% this year. So I think we don't even know until October 10th, but this
No, we
site's
won't
saying
know.
2.5. So I'm going to vote for 2.5 and, because that's what's in there right now.
Split hairs.
Mr. Berman, if I may.
Chair.
If the 3.2, we know, I guess approximately it's going to be around $1 million, but what is the IMRF additional cost going to be as well? Because that's all in.
6.5 of that.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to have at least an exact number or somewhat close to an exact number rather than just a guesstimate of what that impact will be upon the budget before we move. But if this committee decides to move that forward, it does indeed go to executive committee where it'll be voted up or down. And then of course to the full board will go up or down. So it can be a recommended change, but it will take the full board to finally approve it.
Any other discussion? Then we're going to vote on the amendment to the motion. The amendment is to increase the 3.2%.
Yeah.
I do have a question. There was a first amendment done by Leonard and Surges to add partial to the title.
No, we
Are
don't need
we
that anymore.
rescinding that?
We didn't recognize that.
Okay, so then,
Roll call on this.
okay, on the amendment,
Juby,
Maybe I,
Lewis,
Lewis, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, no.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Seppi, no.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes 4-3.
Now we have discussion on the motion as amended. I think we don't need to adjust our verbiage because it is a cost of living. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
To 2024 was at 3.2, but in Chicago it was 3.7. And it's going to come in at about 3.2. So to assume that 2025 will be coming in lower than 2024 is probably not accurate according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Well, and I just looked on AARP, which is my site, and it says 2.5. So I guess we'll see on October 10th.
I think for us to move the question and get all those details before the county board meeting.
I'm sorry?
I said, I think we should move the question. Get the details for the county board meeting, whether it's going to be 3.2 or 2.7 or whatever it is. Roll call on the motion to increase it to 3.2%. Excuse me, to approve as amended.
Juby, Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
No.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes with 1 no.
Thank you very much. Item B is a resolution authorizing a merit increase pool for Kane County departments. 1% of the non-union actual salaries.
Surges moves.
Surges moves.
Second,
To be second discussion?
I have a
Mr.
question.
Berman.
Yes, sir.
So when, first off, I want to thank my colleagues for moving this back to committee and giving us the time we needed to do some homework on this. Ms. Labrillo and I identified that this merit component, first off, is part of our regulations, if you will, that somehow each year we fail to identify a specific pool for that. In this particular case, that pool, Jamie, $270,000-ish. And Jamie and I worked feverishly to try and find enough savings to justify this. We were able to identify a line item where we just slightly over $300,000 in savings. That's the time that we needed to bring this forward and say this has a null effect on the budget, yet an incredible effect on the performance of our employees. So I thank you for that time, and I thank you for the consideration the county gave us.
Very good. Ms. Juby.
So I have a question. Is this a one-time bonus to them, or is this an increase that goes on to their salaries, which will then compound and then affect their benefits down the
The answer
road?
is no, but I'm going to let Jamie give the.
Answer is no,
correct-
it's not either? A one?
No.
Let's do this. I'm going to let Jamie describe to you exactly what
Okay.
this is.
So this will be calculated as a pool that will be distributed at department head discretion based on merit. So this is fully described how it's done in our compensation policy. So the new compensation policy we have does provide for a merit raise for employees that are performing well to encourage high-performing employees. So the 1% is how it's calculated. So based on non-union salaries, that would be how it's calculated, but it's given to the department head as a pool that they can then distribute to those high-performing employees as a merit increase along with an evaluation of the employee that shows that merit-based reason.
So does that mean it's actually added to their salary? So the next year, their salary will reflect that 1%?
Yes.
And then, okay, so,
Mhm.
and we've figured out how that compounds and affects IMRF and all those things too?
Yes, the figure that's provided includes workers' comp, IMRF, payroll taxes, all those things.
Okay, I'm okay with that. I just wanted clarity because it's a one-time bonus is very, very different than a compounding salary.
Well,
Correct. It's a
Madam Chair?
salary increase.
And again, just the math, if the resolution passes through for the full board for the increase from 2.5 to 3.2 or 3.5, whatever it may be, then will that merit pool then increase? Which it would, because it's 1% of total. So do we have enough savings to cover that as well? That may be something that you may want to do a little homework on.
We don't have that computation.
Yeah, I know you
We
don't.
just
Yeah.
modified that on the floor. This is something that we did
Oh,
homework with.
No,
So,
that's what I'm,
yes,
yeah, so you may want to do some research on that and bring that back as well.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Mr. Kepi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is one of those items that one of the speakers referred to earlier this morning, is that we continue to pass things that incrementally increase our budget with no funds associated with it. Current year, we're going to be short 14 million. Next year, we're projected to be short 21 million. The following year, we're expected to be short $40 million. We have no way to pay for these kinds of things. And I just have to point that out. So I'm going to be voting against this, certainly not because I'm concerned about I'm certainly concerned about merit increases for employees, but there are times when you just have to say no. And this is one of them, and the 3.2 increase is another one of them. So sorry to put in my 2 cents there, but I'm concerned.
Any other discussion? Mr. Sturgis.
Mr. Tepe, again, I'm not trying to be controversial here, but a no vote on this, we would need to go back into our rules and change them. We're just trying to be in compliance with what this board has asked us to do. That merit increase is part of our policies and procedures. If we don't like it, then remove it. If we do like it, then fund it. And again, this was a null effect. So I mean, it's not a political statement. It's not a, hey, we're trying to charge ahead with something. This is what the 24 people told us to do. And we're just trying to be in compliance with those rules. And we did that as cost effectively as humanly possible with a null effect on the budget. So I just want to make sure that we understand that. I'm not asking, I'm not bending anybody's arms. We're not, trying to say, hey, do me a favor. These are the rules that y'all said to play by. And so we're just trying to, Jamie, am I mistaken on that at all?
No, not at all. And when we did the compensation policy, there's two separate figures. There's your adjustment, which we call the cost of living or whatever you want to call it, but that's the amount that you're going to give every employee regardless of performance. But a pay for performance model is extremely beneficial to your workforce to help retain your really high functioning employees. So you should look at the combination of the total dollars you have to spend on employee salaries and put some towards cost of living and some to merit. Whatever dollar figure you decide to put towards employee salaries as a board, you should include both cost of living adjustment and merit increase to ensure that you're continuing this process to pay for performance and encourage those high functioning employees. If you give everyone the same raise every year, regardless of performance, you're doing nothing to encourage high performance among your work staff.
Mr. Leonard.
Mr. Chairman, Jamie and maybe Cliff too, if you could explain this to me. With respect to the 1% that is being given to the departments that they can give to whoever they feel is a worthwhile employee, is that limited to 1% for those employees, or could they give a 2 or 3% to those employees?
They could give a couple of percent to one employee and none to another that isn't performing to justify a merit increase. So the pool is calculated based on 1% of total salaries, but the department head can divvy that up among those high functioning employees however they want. So that 1% is just the calculation method. In the past, prior to the compensation policy, the board would pass a cost of living adjustment, but then department heads would divvy that up as a pool. So some employees weren't even getting that, so that other employees could get a higher merit-based raise. So we have adjusted the cost of living to what it should genuinely be, which is all employees across the board receive that percentage. It's not department head discretion. It is for the elected offices because they have internal control, but speaking to the county departments, it is divvied to those employees, not at department head discretion, but they will get whatever you determine that cost of living adjustment is. Each employee under the jurisdiction of the county board will get that percentage. The merit is then made to provide the department heads the ability to give a merit-based increase to the employees that are deserving of that.
Oh, Ms. Lewis.
Yeah. Ms. Burrow, have we tied this merit increase to annual performance appraisals?
Yes, it is. It is a well-documented process within our compensation policy, which is why the resolution itself does not have the parameters. The parameters are built into our compensation policy. And to Ms. Juby's question before, when she asked about a lump sum, if an employee would go over the top of their approved bracket for their position, then raises would be given in a lump sum to make sure they stay within their bracket.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Jis,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Steffi, no.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes with 1 no.
Thank you for the support on this.
Item D is a resolution authorizing the county to contract with Humana Incorporated.
You skip C.
C, I'm sorry, C. C, we're going to remove, it's been requested by the state's attorney in the corner that we remove item C. Any objections? Requested not to have it at this time and defer it.
Mr. Berman,
Defer it until the next meeting.
can we know why it's being deferred?
On advice of counsel.
I don't think I got it.
Yes, we can know why.
Upon advice of counsel.
Thank you.
That's the short answer.
Already taken it off the budget. All right, moving on. Item D. It's a resolution authorizing the county to contract with Humana Incorporated to provide the 2025 healthcare continuation coverage for Medicare eligible retired and disabled employees and surviving spouses.
Surges
And the
moves.
cost for a single is $350.85, and for with a spouse, it's $701.30. That's a monthly charge. Do I have a motion?
Surges moves.
Burgess,
Appeal second.
Pepe, discussion. Roll call, please.
Should I?
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Thank you. E is a resolution approving the King County per diem meal rates for calendar year 2025. And it would be based on the travel destination. Do we have a motion to approve?
Surges moves.
Sturgis,
Lewis will second.
Lewis, discussion. Mr. Leonard.
Mr. Chairman, what does per location determination mean exactly? If it's more expensive, if you're going to New York than Springfield, is that what they're talking
Yes,
about?
Yes.
Okay.
Makes sense. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Should I?
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item F is a resolution authorizing the creation of a position of fatality review manager for the King County Health Department. It's $210,000, and it's ARPA the first year and other grants in the future year.
Sanchez moves.
Should seconds.
Leonard?
Mr. Chairman, is this fully grant funded then? It's not out of the general fund at all?
This year, this would be ARPA this year, and then in future years, it would be grants,
Yeah, there's no general fund money here.
no general fund.
Fine.
Any discussion? Did we get who made the motion? Did you get that?
Tepe.
Yeah, Sanchez
Okay.
and
Sanchez.
Juby.
and
Roll
Juby.
call, please.
Juby,
Should I?
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Thank you. G is a resolution authorizing the IMRF benefit protection leave to $5,000. We have a motion to approve.
Should moves.
Juby,
Lewis will second.
Lewis, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Should I?
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
And H is a resolution authorizing the Houston Galveston Area Council, a H-GAC Purchasing Cooperative Agreement. We have a motion to approve.
Leonard moves.
Leonard,
Sanchez seconds.
Debbie, what's that?
Just.
Sanchez. Discussion?
I have a question.
Ms. Juby?
Are there any purchasing places that are out of like Illinois or the Midwest? Why do we always have all these purchasing agreements with? And I don't even know why we need this one. I know it said it give us more
Bless you.
flexibility, but we already have quite a few.
Kathy, can you elaborate?
In terms of the location, it's where the cooperatives are put together. This was recommended by our purchasing department that we also enter into this cooperative because of the options that it gives us.
Are they different than the options we have with?
They do
RDS or
offer
something?
some different items, yes.
Like what kind of things?
I don't have that off the
I think
tip of my head. I don't know.
Purchasing Department is recommending this.
Karen was here a second. I don't have that information.
Mr.
Madam Chair,
Thank you. Kathy, if I may, does this allow flexibility so we can put out something to bid and we can take a look at these options and find out which one has a better cost for us?
Well, what a co-op does, and we already have 4 of them. So what a co-op does is these co-ops have already gone out to bid, and our review of their organization determines that they are meeting our standards. So it allows us to just buy off of their co-op
No,
without having to go out to bid.
That I understand. So if we wanted to buy something, whatever that something may be, do we price it out with other co-ops as well and come up with the best amount? Or is this co-op that is chosen because it has these certain items that we're looking for, we would naturally just go to them?
I think it's all of the above. I think when departments and offices are looking to buy something, they should be looking at all of the co-ops that we have, as well as just general pricing. I mean, the co-op, the advantage of a co-op is that you don't have to go through the entire bid process because someone else has already done that work.
I appreciate
Right.
that.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
no.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes with 1 no.
Thank you. I is a resolution approving transfer and payment in accordance with the agreed order for case number 13L134, $260,243.73. Do I have a motion?
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Lewis seconds.
Lewis, discussion? Ms. Juby,
Just want to say to Mr. Esposito, I did have this one flagged. I don't really understand why the county is paying for this. And I also don't understand how we went from 500,000 to 50,000 to 210,000. So if someone could explain this to me, I must have missed it at a previous meeting.
Mr. Chairman, Sturgis.
yes, Mr. Surgeon.
Bill, if we go and other members from the past, was this, I'm gonna ask to go to the state's attorney on this. Wasn't this part of a settlement agreement with a big, long, drawn out? And this is a legal situation. This isn't like, here's your bill, pay your bill. It's much more than that. You weren't the state's attorney at the time. I don't know if you're up to date on it, but feel free.
SEO Frank, the gist of it is you are correct. It's a part of a negotiated settlement that happened a number of years ago that called for a balloon payment. This is the balloon payment. My understanding is it will be the final payment. There's a series of years that were made that was essentially giving money back to money we had collected that should have gone some other direction. So this should take care of it. I believe this will end the agreement and have the liability aspect of it taken care of.
Any other discussion? Questions? Roll call, please.
Juby,
I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tippy, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Thank you. J is a resolution adoption of the Kane County Long Range Facilities Master Plan. Do I have a motion to approve?
Bates moves. Oops. I'm
Lewis.
not ready.
Do I have a motion to approve the
Just the lighthouse.
You skipped something.
Jay.
Yeah. So
Jay is recycling.
Yeah.
what happened?
It's not
What happened to J and K? Did they get
What
revoked?
happened to J?
We're on J right now, a resolution, adoption of the Kane County Long Range Facilities Master Plan.
that's not what I have on J.
J is
Says
different.
Sub-award agreement with the Metro.
Well, guess what? Sorry, I have a different agenda.
Apparently.
We only discovered that now.
Interesting.
So item J is an authorization, sub-award agreement with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus to perform recycling, education, and outreach in Kane County.
I'm not on the committee.
Lewis will approve.
Lewis,
Juby seconds.
Julie, Lewis and you. How did I get an over?
Miss,
Questions? Mr.
that's all taken care of.
Mr. Tepney?
Ms. Womack is here if we have questions.
I was just wondering what the amount is.
$300,000.
Okay, I couldn't find it.
A lot of education.
Yeah.
A discussion? Oh, do we have a motion? That's discussion.
Yeah, would, could we explain this a little bit further?
Absolutely. So this is an MOU for the county to accept money from the mayor's caucus to do some targeted education and outreach on recycling as part of a broader regional effort to just improve understanding about recycling, to promote recycling, and help people to do it right. The amount is $83,333.33. Sorry, it was an even number split between a certain number of counties, and that's how it ended up. The other counties we're working with that are also receiving sub awards, you know, should their boards approve it, are DuPage, Will, McHenry, and some of the solid waste agencies, Northern Cook and Lake. So it's a big team effort.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fry.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. No. That was item K. K. We're on K. Resolution authorization to enter into annual King County Health Department grant agreements. This is enter into an agreement with the, do we have a motion to move?
Leonard moves.
Leonard
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Thank you. L is a resolution authorization execution of a grant agreement with Lighthouse Recovery Incorporated to expand medication-assisted recovery services and appropriation of funds for $300,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Juby seconds.
Juby, discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges, Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item M, a resolution authorizing transfer of transportation capital fund number 540 into transportation sales tax fund number 305, $27,530. Do you have a motion?
Juby moves.
Julie,
Lewis will second.
Lewis, discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges, Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And N is a resolution authorizing a contract with Tech Applications and Consulting LLC for the 3DEP LIDAR project bid number 24-053-KK.
Sanchez
That's
moves.
$91,525.
Juby seconds.
We have Sanchez and Juby discussion.
Surges.
Mr. Surges.
Again, this is not my committee. But when I see all those initials, what's the actual project?
Sounds cool though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds cool.
LiDAR, I like LiDAR. Mr. Fonson.
That's all right. I can.
Yeah. Questions? Roll call, please.
Juby,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. I'm sorry, I was working from an old agenda, I guess.
I can't believe we didn't find it till page 3, but that's very funny.
The any old business come before us? This, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to know the status. I believe that we all discussed putting forward an RFP for a strategic plan. Where are we with that?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
The RFP for a strategic plan, I believe that we had talked about that. And that was suggested and that was going to be researched. Is there any update on that?
I have none.
Kathy?
We drafted the RFP. We're just cleaning it up with our purchasing department to make sure it has all the appropriate language. So we plan to hopefully, perhaps by the end of this week, post it.
Oh, wonderful. That's good news. Very good news. And I have one more. We also suggested that there is going to be an external equity study for our employees. What is the status of that?
That did not pass committee, Mr. Chair, if I could.
May I ask why?
It did not have enough votes to pass through committee.
That's
Take that offline and have discussion if you'd like.
That's not. So Mayor Daley used to say.
It did not pass.
Somebody
It
lose.
did not pass committee. All right. Because I thought that was suggested by the full board.
Was a suggestion and then it was voted
And it
down.
did not pass through committee.
And as Mr. Surgeon so eloquently said.
Point
there weren't
point-
enough
point
votes
of
to
order.
pass.
Point of order.
Sorry.
It's not on the finance committee. It's not your committee's discussion, right? You need to go back to the other
Just
committee.
discussing now.
Very good.
Mr. Roth, you can't call a
Very
point of
good.
order.
Thank you, Mr. Is there any other old business?
He's now.
A request to place reports on file?
Leonard moves to place reports on file.
Is that a request for?
Unanimous.
Unanimous consent, sure.
All right, all is very good. Placed on file by unanimous consent. I have no comments. Executive session? Not that I'm aware of. Good. Motion for adjournment?
Leonard moves for. Seconds.
Hitler? How do we?
We have a motion to adjourn in a second.
What? It's 10:28.
All those in favor? say
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You made it with 3 minutes.